Hi everybody, welcome back. Okay, episode 2 kicks off with a car waiting for them at an airport. The camera's actually inside the vehicle and mounted to show the back seat. And if you had watched the body language guy, you will actually see that there were more than one camera and microphones on both sides. Okay, so as they drive away, Meghan talks about a paparazzi who was in the parking garage, and then they keep looking back and saying they are being followed by a paparazzi on a scooter. Sorry, guys, but that is just BS. Firstly, there is no way in hell a scooter can keep up with a car on a freeway. No way. I had a scooter. First, a 60cc, which my father bought for me for my 16th birthday, and then later on a 120cc. No way. This was once again a play on the paparazzi in France who followed Diana on scooters. I don't believe this footage, and not only did I think it was BS, but I also think it was Meghan playing on Harry's paranoia. The only camera or footage in this portion is indeed the one both Harry and Meghan were aware of and mounted in the vehicle. We see pieces from Doria, Vicky Tai, Nick Collins, and another bloke whose name I did not catch at the time, and he pops up throughout the second and third episode, and for some freaking reason, I would miss his name time and time again. But we'll get to that later. Meghan tells her stories about coming out of a flower shop one day and 9 paparazzi blocking traffic to get photographs of her. How she received a call from Harry saying she should not interact or smile at them because the British media is saying she loves the attention. She talks about her home being surrounded by paparazzi and paparazzi sleeping in her cars in front of her home, how they went knocking on her neighbors' doors, even asking neighbors to install and focus cameras on her backyard. Harry talks about reading stuff in the media about Meghan, which he had to go back and ask her about. Then there is a scene with Meghan and Doria driving around their old neighborhood, and they even go to old school, the little red schoolhouse, where she went from the age of 2 until 12. The headmistress shows her a message she wrote to her, in which Meghan wrote that one day, when she is rich and famous, she'll write about her principal, and the world will know about her. Of course, what would any story be without Meghan's ivory dishwashing liquid story and her version, in which she tells with glee that it was her that changed the advertisement. And she said as much in this docuseries. She changed the advertisement. Another friend, Susan Villagers, speaks up and says she was Meghan's best friend. Really? I thought Nanaki Pretty was Meghan's best friend from the age of 4 until after her divorce from Trevor. But it appears that Meghan has now completely forgotten about Nanaki, as she's not even mentioned once. But once we have suffered through the entire series, I'll come back and give you the who's who in the zoo of all the people who appeared in the series. Yes, indeed, there are few surprises there, my friends, and I wonder who was paid how much to say certain things. Meghan talks about being on the set of Married with Children, and the friend talks about how Thomas Markle did a lot for the school and they show photographs of Meghan in her white graduation dress. Then they jump back to Doria, and Doria tells how Meghan was not really concerned about her mixed race background, but how she told Meghan that issues with her mixed race will come down the pike. Now, I have indeed suspected in the past that Doria was actually the shit stirrer, the race baiter, and the devil whispering in Meghan and Harry's ears. And nothing in the series tells me that I am wrong. On the contrary, it adds to my suspicions, as I think Doria is the jealous one, more so than even Meghan. But that, of course, is just my opinion, and I may still change that later in the series. Harry chimes in and tells about his concerns and tells how, as far as the royal family was concerned, all the wives went through the same thing and therefore could not understand why his girlfriend should be treated differently. Harry said it was different because of the racial element. Okay, so indeed, we were all correct. They did pull the race card. Now, judging from footage taken of people randomly in the streets, the general population, or then the people of Britain did not care about Meghan's ethnic background. And in the footage, there are hardly any negative or racist headlines. One paper refers to Meghan's exotic DNA, but I have never considered the word exotic as anything negative, but maybe other people do. There is a bit of talk in between about the proposal, how Harry bought champagne, and it must have been a cheap bottle of champagne because Meghan actually mocked it. How he got candles and went on one knee. But here again, I know people on Instagram and TikTok photograph or record their proposals, but it is not something royals do. But again, it is clear that Megsy tried to capture the moment for future distribution. Unfortunately, the result was very grainy and thus never made it to the tabloids, but it did now make it to their Netflix reality show. And then, if you guys think about it, how do we even know that particular photograph was taken during the proposal? But let's just agree to disagree. But I'm jumping the gun a little and skipping other parts of episodes 2 and 3, so let's get back on track. Doria clearly took some delight in giving her truth and talking about how the media harassed her, how they took pictures from Skid Row and said that that was where Meghan was from. Unfortunately, they did not show those articles, so maybe those were from American cheapskate celebrity rags. I honestly don't know. They talk about how the British media is a toxic white industry, and Harry talks about his favorite term, unconscious bias again. Blah, blah, bloody blah. There are interviews with Chantal Humphrey, a previous assistant, I think an assistant to Meghan while she was on Suits, Steve Davies, Meghan's security detail in Toronto, and while she was still on Suits, Nick Collins is a former agent, and Heather Dorak are both also interviewed. But it was describing Meghan's first meeting with William and Catherine, which to me was the first real indication of Meghan's disdain and feelings towards them. She tells how she was in jeans, etc., but then says that it was clear to her that the formality on the outside carries through to the inside. So, what was she really saying? That they were cold towards her? They also talk about Meghan meeting the Queen for the first time. They met the Queen at Royal Lodge for lunch after church, and Meghan mocks the bowing with a kind of bow or flurry a ham actor would make on stage. Really, really awful. Obviously, she thought it was funny, but I do not think the British public would think mocking the Queen was funny. Anyway, I have not read the papers yet or watched other videos on the subject, but I know it was yet again a lie or then an exaggeration, as we heard that Fergie showed her how to curtsy, and now hearing that they met at Royal Lodge, that makes perfect sense. The other thing is, according to Meghan, she took dance and ballet lessons as a child. And if I recall correctly, there were actually photographs of her as a child taking a ballet lesson. Now, from what I remember from my children's younger days, you always end a ballet lesson with a curtsy. So, how the heck could she not have known how to curtsy? But I am yet again pretending to be Liz Corbus and jumped around a bit. Like I said, I messed my notes up and I'm not going to rewatch it a second time. So just forgive me and go with the flow. I'll put it all together in the end, I promise. So in episode 2, there was a lot of footage of interviews with the public after the engagement and leading up to the wedding, and even footage of Charles, Camilla, and Catherine saying how absolutely thrilled they were for Harry and about the engagement. So it is rather hard to believe or understand where or how Harry and Meghan could perceive the reaction to their engagement as negative or racist. Yet Meghan says in so many words, and I quote, "No matter how hard I tried, no matter how good I was, nothing was good enough." And to make matters worse, Meghan says that their engagement interview was orchestrated and rehearsed. Well, I watched the engagement interview and actually reviewed the engagement interview, and whoever then orchestrated it or rehearsed it with them did a very, very bad job and should be fired. What really got to me was episode 3 with the long inserts on slavery. According to the interviewees, mostly that Afua Hish woman and another bloke, the one I've been talking about all the time, whose name I kept missing over and over again. Anyway, I will have to at some point go back and get his name because I have a serious axe to grind with him. Anyway, they talk about slavery being fueled by the British Empire and financed by kings and queens, which in a very, very tiny, small way is correct, but overall also factually incorrect. Slavery existed long before the British even set foot on African soil. It started when trade routes were established around Africa. They talk about how the fact that slave owners were compensated after slavery was abolished in the 1830s and how that was airbrushed out. Now I'm asking you, what on God's earth does that have to do with Meghan and Harry? Neither themselves, their parents, or even their grandparents were alive or even born when slavery was abolished. However, it is particularly in episode 3 that I felt like someone watching a tennis match as they jumped from one subject to another. And I found it tedious and had to rewind once or twice as I lost the thread of what they were saying. Because one minute they're talking about slavery, and the next they're talking about Harry and Meghan's first walkabout, and Harry saying everybody was excited and pleased for them. I thought there was racism and aggression towards Meghan. Yet Harry is saying everyone was excited and pleased, and they jumped from slavery to walkabouts. I don't get it. In any case, then they have a scene where the crying makeup artist is applying makeup to Meghan's face. Then there is an office scene with Meghan and Harry and Mayana Dayani talking about royal correspondence, royal experts, and the royal rota, and Harry explaining what it all means. And I again have Hayley in the room with me, so she's scratching and grunting. Just don't mind her. Anyway, but ultimately, it feels to me that they started the series with this sweet, happy romance and escalated in episode 2. And in episode 3, they threw everything they could in to hurt and discredit whomever they could. It is just a mishmash of slavery, the horrible press, being stalked, and nasty families. I was doing all I could to keep track, keep my jaw from dropping on the floor and banging my head on the desk one minute to stay awake and doing so the next minute out of frustration. What I found perhaps more horrendous than most other things was how the Markle family was slagged off, and in so many words. And I'm going to spend some time on this, if you don't mind. Meghan, while a family tree is being displayed on the screen, actually says her mom's side was classy and quiet, while the other side was just everywhere. So why then, if this was indeed true, did she only invite her mother to the wedding and not her uncles and aunts and cousins from her mother's side? But we'll get back to that. She then starts on Samantha, and there is an interview with Samantha's oldest daughter, Ashley, and she tells how they were raised by their paternal grandparents, did not see Samantha from the time they were 6 until 2007 when they reconnected. Well, again, I cannot see any rhyme or reason why this was added to a series about Harry and Meghan. What business is it of theirs? Meghan is only 4 years older than Ashley, never knew her until they were both adults, and thus Ashley did in no way influence Meghan's life path. The only conclusion we can come to is that they decided to do this to discredit Samantha before Samantha's court case. That is absolutely the only reason, because Ashley have and had no bearing on their lives currently or in the past. However, as is the trend in this series, they jump from Ashley to Meghan's first Christmas with the royal family, and again we hear about the family she never had. how amazing it was, and how she sat next to Prince Philip. Then they jump from there to Princess Markle wearing the blackamoor brooch, to Harry partying in a Nazi uniform, to Missan Harriman saying the young Harry was just like many of the boys he went to school with. And then they jump from Missan Harriman to a scene of Harry and Meghan with military personnel and a discussion on Harry's 10 years and his 2 tours to Afghanistan, and how he went to war twice, and how he still has a little PTSD because of it. Blah, blah, bloody blah. Yet it is widely known that he was pulled out twice during both tours as the fighting started. In fact, during his first tour, he was pulled out shortly before his Camp Baston, was attacked and 2 soldiers killed. And that, my dear friends, you are welcome to go Google. I am not lying to you. They then jump from there to the Royal Foundation. Meghan talks about Princess Diaries and how there's no class to teach you how to be royal. Yet she forgets to mention that it was all over the internet and the newspapers that she had etiquette lessons with Edmund Fry, and that she was offered help from Sophie, Camilla, and the Queen herself. And even Fergie stepped in once or twice. She also forgot to mention that she had more staff to help her than she ever had before. Thank God that she knew how to use Google. Otherwise, she still would not have known the national anthem. You know what? I guess she listens to my videos, in which I have now said probably 100 times how I wished she would know how to use Google. So I guess she got that tip from me to say she looked it up on Google. So maybe she should pay me for giving her that tip. Anyway. And then they jumped to her being fitted for that red dress she wore to the Salute to Freedom gala, and Meghan saying that she tried to fit in by wearing muted colours. Oi, 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 lie, lie, lie. I don't understand her. Does she think we are all blind? Does she forget that every time she stepped out, she had photographs taken of her? Anyway, we saw her in all the colors of the rainbow. But what she did do was, when everybody was in pastel colors, she would wear a dark color, and vice versa. I guess she did not want to blend in after all. Then at some point, they cut back to Ashley, Samantha's daughter, and with tears in her eyes, she tells how Meghan explained to her that she could not invite her to the wedding because of her mother. Is this woman stupid or what? What about Meghan's black family? What about cousin Donovan Johnson? Was he also not invited because of Samantha? I mean, I'm just asking. There is a cameo appearance by Serena Williams before the launch into politics. There is a long segment on the Commonwealth and footage of them attending Commonwealth Day, and then those obscure people I was talking about previously crop up again talking about colonialism. about the privileged club the royal family belongs to, about the British royal family being an international monarchy, as the monarch is also head of state of other countries, about the Queen fighting her whole life for the Commonwealth, which, in their opinion, is just the Empire 2.0. And that, my dear friends, Harry the traitor, allowed in this series. He should be ashamed of himself. Let me just move on before I get too mad. And then they move to footage of Harry and Meghan attending a memorial held for Stephen Lawrence, who was killed by 5 young men. And they go and on about the inability of authorities to protect minorities. And then, can you believe they jumped from that to Meghan's father? I guess it's because he's white. Here, Meghan's coldness, lack of empathy, her spitefulness and deviousness shows as clearly as the hand in front of my face. She goes through the photo shoot he had, and although James Holt actually said that he found it rather sweet that Thomas Markle was trying to show how he tried to learn about Meghan's new family and country and prepare for the wedding, Meghan is determined to show how cagey, her word, not mine, her father was, and said he was paid $40,000 for those pictures. Then she also alleges that it wasn't her father who texted her back from hospital. It was so nauseating that I felt physically sick. How could she do this to her father? I don't care what he did or did not do. He is still her father, the man who brought her up, the man who paid for her entire education from the age of 2 until she graduated from Northwestern University, the man who fed her and clothed her. I honestly don't care what he did. I have seen people who were abused by a parent less willing to talk ill in public about that parent. And Meghan is a disgrace for what she did and what she allowed in the series to be said about her family. If you hate them, stay away from them and keep quiet about them. Leave them the heck alone. And then she talks about the security surrounding their wedding and how she was just turtling away from it all. Now, I know I skipped and missed a lot, but I took episode 1 in my stride, started feeling uncomfortable in episode 2, but episode 3 actually made me sick. I'm confused and I don't know whether I'm angry or upset, or I still need to analyze that. I do not understand what Meghan and Harry want. I do not get it. What would their ideal world look like? Based on particularly episode 3, I think I am entirely entitled to ask the following questions. Would their ideal world be one in which her entire white family and Harry's entire family and the monarchy are swept into the sea and forgotten? But then she does not want her black family either, except for her mother, whom she pulls out of the closet at her convenience. Well, heck, I mean, Why not wipe the entire white race into the sea and leave Harry and Meghan, the lone and only white people on earth? What does slavery, abolished in the 1830s, have to do with them? And why bring it into this series about them? I don't get it. I mean, choose a lane and stay in it, for Pete's sake. But what sickens me most of all is that, do I have to call him King Charles? Backed by Rishi Sunak, opposed the removal of titles bill after all this. That, my friends, is downright sick. And we have to ask ourselves, why doesn't he want the power to remove the titles? Why? And when I come back on Monday, I will tell you why I think that is. Well, maybe I will not do it here or post a watered down version here and the full version on Rumble, because I suspect that the full version may get me kicked off YouTube, but I'll see how it turns out. So, my dear friends, that's it from me. Have a wonderful weekend and take good care of yourselves until we meet on the next one. Love you all. Bye.